From the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub Podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Good morning, security gang. Welcome to Wednesday morning, July 9th, 2025. A packed show for all of y'all today. Yesterday was one of those days where you constantly ask yourself, why? Why? And why, you might ask? Because today we're doing a recap of what yesterday is known as Patch Tuesday. That's right. The one day where everyone says we're going to declare all the vulnerabilities in the world. And we know that threat actors are going to go after these vulnerabilities. But we've all decided that just on one day, we're going to drop it all on your head and good luck. So, gladly there's, some automation, auto patching mechanisms and all that. And some of this stuff is easily auto patched and some of it isn't and requires you to go through a chain of decision making before you can actually fix the vulnerability that exists there. But nonetheless, somewhere at some point, someone thought this was a good idea. And whoever that person is, I think we all want to just wish them Godspeed. All right, so let's get into the show this morning. Before we do that, though, I've got my double espresso this morning. Join me to power me through this episode. Coffee cup cheers, y'all. Yeah, it's good. That's awesome. All right, let's get into what's happening here with Microsoft release of Patch Tuesday yesterday included fixes for 137 different flaws and a zero-day vulnerability in the Microsoft SQL Server. Patch Tuesday fixed 14 critical vulnerabilities, 10 of which are remote code execution vulnerabilities. One is an information disclosure, and two are AMD side channel attack flaws. The number of bugs out of the 137 based on the types of vulnerabilities they introduced, 53 are elevation of privilege vulnerabilities, 8 are security feature bypass, 41 are remote code execution, 18 information disclosure, 6 denial of service, and 4 spoofing vulnerabilities and a partridge in a pear tree. July and Christmas, right? Christmas in July, sorry. So the zero day, though, is CVE 2025-49719er. It's an SQL Server information disclosure vulnerability that would allow a remote unauthenticated attacker to access data from uninitialized memory. The improper input validation in SQL allows an unauthorized attacker to disclose information over the network, according to Microsoft. Admin can fix the flaw by installing the latest version of Microsoft SQL Server and by installing the Microsoft OLEDB driver 18 or 19. Microsoft is attributing the discovery to Vladimir Alexic with Microsoft, but they don't provide details how it was publicly disclosed. While there's only one zero day, it's something to keep in mind there with Microsoft. AMD, Cisco, Fortinet, Google, Grafana, Avanti, and SAP all did their own releases as well. We'll get into some of those here in just a sec. Adobe, the second most popular kind of Patch Tuesday item, and the reason for it is actually quite interesting. I'm not sure why so many people go into, I don't think people understand how Adobe is interconnected into the entire enterprise ecosystem, but it really is beyond just, the traditional Adobe products. Adobe on their end addressed 58 different vulnerabilities across 13 different products, including 3 critical severity flaws in Adobe Connect, Cold Fusion, and Experience Manager forms on JEE. The most severe of the bugs is CVE 2025-49533. It's got a CVSS score of 9.8, and it's a deserialization of untrusted data in AEM forms on JEE that could lead to arbitrary code execution. Now, ideally, Adobe said it's not aware that this is being exploited in the wild. By the way, Microsoft said the same about their SQL zero day, but give it a day or two. If by tomorrow's show I'm not talking about it, then on Monday we definitely will be. The Cold Fusion also fixed a total of 13 different security defects, including a high priority CVE 2025-49535. It's got a CVSS score of 9.3, and it's an improper restriction of XML external entity reference bug that could allow attackers to execute arbitrary code on vulnerable systems. CVE 2025-27203 also has a CVSS score of 900.3, is a critical severity vulnerability resolved in Adobe Connect, and is described as a deserialization of untrusted data issues that could lead to arbitrary code execution. So all in all, the thing about Adobe is you really could auto patch most of the Adobe stuff. If it's kind of supporting a lot of the internal mechanisms within a business, which a lot of this Adobe stuff does. Some of it is outside facing, but most of it is likely internal. You can really just deploy an auto patch and get it fixed, and you should do that, please. You should do that ASAP if you can. That'll help there as well. Ivanti, Fortinet, and Splunk all announcing patches for dozens of various vulnerabilities across their product portfolios, including several that are critical and high severity flaws. Ivanti, you glute for punishment, you get what you want. All right, got to do it. Got to get it out of my system. My favorite punching bag. Ivanti, Connect Secure, Policy Secure, Endpoint Mobile Manager, Endpoint Manager Mobile, and Endpoint Manager all got patched up and resolve 11 bugs that require authentication to be exploited. So they're not high severity or low complexity. They're high complexity types of attacks because you've got to compromise credentials, but identity is the new perimeter, and that's easier said nowadays. The EPM update also resolves 3 high severity defects that could allow attackers to decrypt other users' passwords or read arbitrary data from the database, while the EPMM refresh fixes 2 high severity OS command injection flaws that could lead to remote code execution. There's no evidence of those being exploited in the wild by China just yet, so get those patched up. Fortinet published 8 advisories detailing 1 critical, 1 high, 5 medium, and 1 low across 40 Analyzer, 40 Solitaire, 40 Manager, 40 OS, Proxy, Sandbox, SASE, Voice, and Web. CVE 2025-25257 has a CVSS score of 900.6, and it's an SQL injection flaw in the 40 web that could be exploited via crafted HTTP or HTTP request to execute unauthorized SQL code or commands. No authentication is required for successful exploitation. The crafted HTTP and HTTPS or CLI request could also be used to exploit 2 high severity OS command injection defects in 40 voids that are tracked as CV 2025-47856. So you have that. Splunk issued 12 advisories this week to resolve critical and high severity flaws in third-party dependencies in Splunk SOAR, Enterprise, and DB Connect. Most of these bugs were disclosed last year, with several in 2022 and 2023 CVEs are actually resolved. One issue was disclosed in 2013, just showing you how difficult it is sometimes to actually patch this up. In the SCADA world, Siemens released 9 new advisories as well as a security bulletin urging customers to take steps to secure their ICS amid an increasing threat to the OT landscape. The alert cites the current geopolitical situation and references a recent U.S. government alert warning organizations about a potential surge in attacks by the Iranians. We'll get into Iran here in just a few minutes. The industrial giant also informing customers that its Centron Power Manager and the Ciego CC devices are not affected by a recently disclosed remote code execution vulnerability in Apache Tomcat. 2 critical and 1 high severity flaws have been addressed by Siemens and its Synac NMS product. The security holes could allow privilege escalation and code execution. So Schneider Electric publishing 4 new advisories. One of them describes several critical and high severity vulnerabilities affecting the EcoStruxure IT data center expert product. The flaws could be exploited for unauthenticated remote code execution, root password discovery, remote command execution, and privilege escalation. And Phoenix Connects also released 4 new advisories on Tuesday. 2 of them describe critical vulnerabilities in PLC Next firmware, enabling attackers to reboot PLCs, gain access to execute files, cause a denial of service condition, and perform other activities. So all are there. ABB also published their own advisory. So did Mitsubishi Electric. Those came a few days before Patch Tuesday, so you want to make sure you check those out. That's in summary the Patch Tuesday for today. We'll get into some more stories. Marks and Spencer now confirming that the Dragon Force ransomware attack on the company was a result of a sophisticated impersonation attack, essentially a social engineering attack. Marks and Spencer chairman Archie Norman revealed in a hearing with the UK Parliament's Business and Trade Subcommittee on Economic Security regarding the attack, saying he didn't go into details. He just stated the threat actors impersonated one of the 50,000 people working at the company to trick a third-party entity into resetting an employee password. Again, help desk. In our case, the initial entry was on April the 17th, occurred through what people now call social engineering. As far as I can tell, that's euphemism for impersonation. Shows you just how well he is communicating with the CISO. And it was a sophisticated impersonation. They didn't just walk up and say, "Will you change my password?" They appear to somebody with their details. That's not sophisticated, Archie. That's what they do. That's called social engineering, Bubba. So let me explain something to you, Archie. Here's what happened. Your CIO and CISSO, very, very capable people, I am sure, have third-party companies helping them manage the workload. So instead of staffing a help desk, they've outsourced it, which is very common in today's world, Archie. Don't worry. I'll explain a little bit more. So here's what happened. The business process of resetting passwords through your help desk only requires authenticating the user's maybe email, maybe a few different data points that are publicly available information. And so if you get that phone number, which pretty easily, it's pretty easy to get a phone number for the help desk, then it's really easy to do that. What you need to do, Archie, is build a resilient business, Bubba. See, and the resilient business comes through by actually empowering your CIO and CISO to actually do more for the organization, to embed additional security products in there, to ensure that there's some level of additional authentication. That would be really, really helpful, Archie. Anyways, good luck. I know you're fighting the good fight, but we definitely need to have that conversation a bit more, buddy. Here we go. All right, so we have that. Iranian ransomware groups are now offering bigger payouts for attacks on Israel and the U.S. The Iranian ransomware group known as Pay2Key.I2P is believed to be the successor of the original Pay2Key operation, which has been linked to Iran's state-backed Fox Kitten hacking group. According to a new report by Morphosec, Pay2Key has adopted a ransomware as a service model, claiming to have collected more than $4 million in payments over the past 4 months. Since June, they've offered affiliates an 80% cut of ransom proceeds, up from 70% if they participate in attack against Iranian adversaries. They have a whole statement. I'm not going to read their propaganda statements. My name is not Tucker Carlson. I will push back on some of their crap. So the campaign comes as U.S. officials are warning of more Iranian retaliation following American airstrikes on Iranian nuclear facilities. So you've got that there as well. So they're targeting the U.S., Israel, Azerbaijan, and the UAE as part of their campaign. The Chinese nation-state actor tracked assault Typhoon is operated by a clutch of private hacking firms whose clients include multiple Chinese government agencies, according to a leaked datasets by SpyCloud. The firm spotted datasets sold in criminal forums in May that appear to have originated inside of China's hack-for-hire ecosystem, a network of companies that take direct tasking orders from intelligence agencies in China and also hack on spec in the hopes of later selling access or some of that stolen data to the Chinese government. SpyCloud's analysis of sample data taken from the criminal forums includes IP addresses of routers apparently attacked by Salt Typhoon, employee details such as names and internal chat logs. They also contain contracts, such as one between a Beijing hacking firm and a military supplier to the Chinese Communist People's Liberation Army. I love how always communism's always like, we're people's liberation, we're people's democratic republic. And you're like, nothing about you is democratic or liberating people. But nonetheless, they still put that in there. The identity protection company said it verified the authenticity of the leak by cross-referencing the personal information and matching it to real individuals in China. Some of the listed router usernames correspond with actual Chinese ISPs, according to the SpyCloud research. They also found a spreadsheet listing buyers, sellers, and even financial transaction details that Salt Typhoon also used in intrusions to the U.S. telecom network. So we're starting to kind of see this Salt Typhoon thing come together through some of the threat intelligence here, SpyCloud being one of those. And it's kind of showing you the interconnectivity of threat actor groups in China and the Chinese government, the Chinese Communist Party. All in all, they're one of the same. And finally, Treasury and the Office of OFAC, the Office of Foreign Assets Control, on Tuesday sanctioning a new member of the North Korean hacking group called Andriel for their role in the IT worker scheme that's fooled so many in this country. The Treasury said Sung Kum Haik, a 38-year-old North Korean national with an address in the Chinese province of Jilin, enabled the fraudulent operation by using foreign hired IT workers to seek remote employment with U.S. companies and planning to split the income with them. Song is alleged to have used the identities of U.S. people, including their names, addresses, social security numbers, to craft aliases for the hired workers, who then used these personas to pose as U.S. nationals looking for remote jobs in the country. The development coming after a raid on some of these facilities in the U.S. and the crackdown that's happening. You're seeing the law enforcement actually doing a really good job at getting to the bottom of it, and good for them. That's it for our show this morning. We'll be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern with all the latest cybersecurity headlines as we wrap up this week of July. So much to talk about. Make sure to go check out cyberhubpodcast.com for all the latest articles and content, including this here very podcast in written format directly in your inbox shortly after the podcast is over. A rerun of the podcast airs at 11 a.m. Eastern on our LinkedIn CyberHub Podcast channel. So go check it out there. Until then, have a great rest of your day, and most importantly, all stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.